It's hard to believe that there's no more Iron Man. It seemed like just yesterday that Tony Stark dropped into theaters with his awesome power armor. While we may not have any more Iron Man movies to look forward to, it looks like Tom Holland's Spider-Man is just starting. Robert Downey Jr. is a really hard act to follow, but if anyone is up to it, Tom Holland is. 15 or so years ago, Spider-Man was the biggest hero around and no one knew who Iron Man even was. Now, it looks like the time for Spidey to return to his place on top of the Marvel pyramid. Not only does he have an incredible rogues gallery of villains to populate his movies, but also a company of his own. Peter Parker also has Tony's trademark wittiness. The Avengers are going to need that desperately in the future. Other members like Captain Marvel and Black Panther don't have much of a sense of humor. The MCU needs an Iron Man, and Spidey may be as close as we get. This is how Spider-Man could be the next Iron Man. A more famous superhero. From the look of the Far From Home trailer, the world is pretty messed up about the death of Tony Stark. I mean, who isn't really? So, with everyone's favorite super celebrity out of the picture, who is going to fill that void? Well, Peter Parker may give it his best shot. It looks like he's making public appearances and cracking jokes with New York's finest. He's even become Nick Fury's go-to Avenger. Maybe it's time for Spider-Man to fully step into the spotlight. This would fit in with some of the earlier Spider-Man movies. In the Sam Raimi trilogy, Spider-Man was pretty much a New York City icon. Is Tom Holland about to finally surpass the original Spidey's popularity? There's only one person who may have a problem with that. Spider-Man becoming a bigger sensation is a perfect excuse to introduce Peter Parker's true arch-nemesis, Mr. J. Jonah Jameson. J.K. Simmons could easily play that character again. Could anyone else really do JJJ justice? Peter starts making his own tech. One of the biggest complaints fans have had about the MCU Spider-Man is that he is fully reliant on Tony for tech. The other two movie Spider-Men made their own suits and tech, though that wasn't as impressive for Andrew Garfield. His first costume didn't look all that great. Now that Tony Stark is gone, there's no one left to make Peter's gadgets for him. This would be a perfect time for Peter to take some initiative as far as Spidey tech goes. He has a stealth suit in Far From Home. Is it possible that this is the first in a line of new suits designed by Peter himself? Unlike Tony, Peter has a partner who might help him with the engineering work. Maybe Ned will get a promotion from Spider-Man's resident guy in the chair. The two built a Lego Death Star together. After doing that, a new Spider-Man costume is no sweat. There are so many awesome Spider-Man suits to choose from. Maybe the MCU version of the Black Spider-Man suit isn't made of an alien symbiote. It would also be cool if Peter upgraded the Iron Spider costume. The suit was pretty awesome in the last two Avengers movies. It would be sad if that was the last we saw of it. Is it too much to ask for a Tony Stark style montage where he builds a new suit while AC/DC plays? Well, I mean, of course, considering that it is Peter, it wouldn't be music, it'd be more of an 80s movie playing in the background. You know, like the really old movie Empire Strikes Back. Professor Octavius. If Peter Parker is going to start making his own tech, he's going to need a new teacher to help him. He's not Tony Stark's protege anymore, but it looks like he still has connections to Stark Industries. It wouldn't be too surprising if SI's newest resident scientist turned out to be Otto Octavius. You might better know him by his other name, Dr. Octopus. One of the most common story elements in the Spider-Man mythos is that Peter meets Otto before he goes full evil. In both Spider-Man 2 and the PS4 Spider-Man video game, Octavius was a mentor of Peter's. In the game, Peter even helps Octavius perfect his metal arms. If Otto isn't associated with Stark Industries, he could also be a teacher of Peter's. He seems a little too intelligent for high school, but maybe Peter could start taking college courses. There's little doubt that Peter will be desperate for a new mentor now that Tony's gone. It would be perfectly tragic for Tony's replacement to turn into one of Spider-Man's greatest foes. Also, the fight between Doc Ock and Spidey in Spider-Man 2 is still the best in the franchise. Who wouldn't want to see the MCU take another crack at that? Revenge of the Scorpion. Tony Stark made quite a few enemies as he was rising up the ranks of Stark Industries. He managed to offend the likes of Obadiah Stane, Justin Hammer, and Aldrich Killian. All three ended up trying to get revenge on the billionaire superhero. Even his father's old enemies came looking for vengeance. Howard's partner Anton Vanko was deported after a disagreement between the two. His son Ivan ended up creating Iron Man armor of his own to destroy Tony's legacy. Spider-Man Homecoming set up a very similar kind of villain. While Peter was trying to stop the Vulture on a ferry in New York, he ended up fighting a man named Mac Gargan. During the fight, Gargan ended up getting disfigured. At the end of the film, Gargan approaches the Vulture in prison and hints that he wants a shot at revenge. In the comics, Mac Gargan turns into the supervillain known as the Scorpion. J. Jonah Jameson pays for him to get a procedure done that grants him enhanced strength and agility. He also gets permanently bonded to a super suit that has a giant scorpion tail on his back. The tail shoots either energy blasts, poison, or acid, depending on who is riding him. The villain is kind of like a hybrid of both Captain America and Iron Man. He's a super soldier with a high-tech suit. It certainly wouldn't be hard to justify that combination in the MCU. Rumor is that Mac Gargan's actor, Michael Mando, will be back for Spider-Man Far From Home. If he was going to go full Scorpion, they probably would have teased it by now. That being said, it's likely that he'll at least take another step towards his destiny. Maybe the post-credit stinger will feature a massive prison break that sets up the Sinister Six. If that ends up happening, you heard it here first. I want the credit. The rise of OSCORP. There is no way that Stark Industries is going to be the same without Tony Stark. Not only that, but the company has been out of the weapons business ever since the first Iron Man. After Tony's top competitor Justin Hammer got himself put in prison at the end of Iron Man 2, someone had to take their place. There's one popular weapons company that could easily step in: OSCORP. For those who don't know, OSCORP is the company that's run by Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. In the first Raimi movie, Norman goes crazy after losing a government contract. He tests a super soldier serum on himself and dons the company's experimental body armor. Like the Scorpion, Green Goblin is also kind of a cross between Iron Man and Captain America, though that's not the only way they could choose to depict the character. In The Incredible Hulk, we learn that the Army is desperate to make new super soldiers. This leads to the experiment that turns Bruce Banner into the Hulk. Despite that experiment going terribly, General Ross creates a new Hulk in the form of Emil Blonsky's Abomination. In Ultimate Spider-Man, the Green Goblin is a giant green monster, similar to the Hulk. Maybe the MCU Green Goblin could be attempting to recreate the Hulk instead of Captain America. That would certainly be a welcome change to the character. The last 3 attempts at making the armored, glider-wearing Goblin have been increasingly disappointing. Sure, Willem Dafoe was great, but his costume looked like a Power Ranger. Yeah, but that costume was Oscar-worthy when you compare that to the James Franco and Daniel DeHaan versions. Parker Industries. In the comics, Peter eventually becomes the CEO of his own company, Parker Industries. To be fair, the company was started by Otto Octavius when he was in control of Peter's body. That's way too complicated to get into here, so let's just skip ahead. Peter continues on with the company and it becomes a big success. What with this being Spider-Man though, the success didn't last. This would be a cool avenue for the MCU Peter to go down. He could truly follow in Tony's footsteps as a young CEO of his own tech company. Who needs college when you're a kid genius? It would sort of be like The Social Network meets Iron Man. He could even hire his classmates, like Ned, MJ, and Flash Thompson as employees. Parker Industries would present new challenges for Spider-Man that we haven't seen in the films before. Not only would he have to balance his personal life with his superheroics, but also his business life. That would be the perfect way for him to emulate his mentor's life. The Sinister Six. When Tony Stark finished the first Iron Man movie with the line, "I am Iron Man," he started us all on a journey. The opening part of that journey ended gloriously with the first superhero team-up movie, The Avengers. It seems like the same sort of thing started in Spider-Man Homecoming. That movie introduced Spidey villains like the Shocker, Vulture, and Scorpion, and all 3 of those characters have been a part of one of the most legendary supervillain teams of all time, the Sinister Six. Spider-Man Far From Home is going to introduce Mysterio, who is also featured on the team. It could all lead up to the MCU's first full-fledged supervillain movie. It could be like the Avengers, only with Spidey villains who are all trying to take down our favorite webhead. Big-time Avenger. The state of the Avengers is a bit up in the air at the moment. We saw Spider-Man get introduced into the team in Infinity War. At the end of Endgame, however, it's unclear if the team is even still a thing. Assuming that Marvel continues to make Avengers movies, which seems likely, they'll need a new resident cut-up. Black Panther or Carol Danvers will likely lead the team. Maybe that'll leave room for Peter Parker to be the one with all the quips. If he gets Parker Industries up and moving, he could even supply the team with fresh tech like Tony did, though it's much more likely that Shuri would take over. Sorry Peter, you're smart, but you aren't sure he's smart. It's possible even Tony Stark wasn't that smart. His own sidekick. Unlike the comics, Spider-Man made his debut in the MCU as more or less Iron Man's sidekick. He was a lot like the Robin to Tony's Batman. Doctor Strange even jokingly asked if Peter was Tony's ward in Infinity War. That's why the ultimate way for Peter to fully take Tony's mantle is to get himself his own sidekick. In Spider-Man Homecoming, they introduced Donald Glover's Aaron Davis. Those who have seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse know that Aaron is the villainous Prowler. He's also the uncle of the second most famous wallcrawler, Miles Morales. Aaron even makes a reference to his nephew when he's being interrogated by Peter. This proves that Miles Morales exists in the MCU. What with Peter getting snapped away in Infinity War, New York had no Spider-Man for 5 years. In that time, Miles could have easily filled in as Spider-Man. It would be really surprising if the MCU was able to keep the casting of a live-action Miles Morales a secret. So it's incredibly unlikely that we'll see Miles in Spider-Man Far From Home. That being said though, after the Oscar-winning success of Into the Spider-Verse, it's inevitable that Miles Morales will make his MCU debut. Very soon, Peter Parker will probably have a sidekick of his very own. Tom Holland just has to make the "if you are nothing without the suit, you don't deserve to have it" speech. A larger multiverse. Iron Man wasn't a famous superhero film just because of how awesome it was, but also because it had a shared movie universe. It's hard to believe now, but at the time, that was a crazy concept. In Spider-Man Far From Home, it looks like Spider-Man is going to further expand the universe. According to Nick Fury, Jake Gyllenhaal's Quentin Beck is from an alternate universe. Apparently when Thanos made his infamous snap, he ripped a hole in the multiverse. That hole probably wasn't helped by the Avengers time-traveling antics and those 2 other snaps. Now we know that the MCU is introducing the concept of a multiverse. Judging from how well it worked in Into the Spider-Verse, that probably points to amazing things ahead. Wouldn't it be awesome if they managed to bring Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in for a team-up? Not only that, but this could be how Spider-Man could go up against Tom Hardy's Venom. That movie was massively successful, but reportedly not in the MCU. It would be such a shame if Venom never went up against Spider-Man. How do you think the MCU might make Spider-Man more like Iron Man? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more from The Binger.